Peace. What's good? What's good? What's good? So I thought I would be making this video tomorrow after I just recorded the video explaining the situation that created this video. My dude sat by, me and him chopped it up. I told him about the video. I told him about a mystery man, and now we about to take him to a mystery school. All right, so this guy responded to my last video. Do white people not know they are the elite? He's since deleted his comments, but his comments were worth responding to, and they were worth definitely getting some views off of, baby. So let's talk about this, guys. White people are very individualistic. I'm not sure if I can get through to you on this, but the random person you see on the street is not colluding with the mega churches. He went on to say more after this, but again, he deleted his comments because his comments were incredibly fucking racist. And I don't think he really realized how racist he was until he said these comments out loud to a black person without getting and having someone treat him like he's a child rather than getting angry and upset with him and acting like a child myself. That was unpredictable. Hold on, let me get a second. You get to see how I turned my light back on too. So give me 1 second. What's that? Not that bad with the bow staff either in a fight, but it's never come to that. I don't have an issue with your perspective, and I actually enjoy discussing it. I just have an argument against it. That's kind of a contradictory statement. There are white people out there with probably again, it cuts off. In this, though, he compares white people and trying to say all white people are racist. And he then compares white people to the Bloods and the Crips. So that's what created this video in which I'm now going to talk about white crime versus black crime. And we're going to take a look at the crime in America. Who is committing the crimes in America? Is there a crime issue in America? And why do white people seem to think that it is not them? Why are white people so convinced that they are not a problem on earth? Why are white people so convinced that their perspective of reality, their perspectives of life, not the reality that they live in, their perspective, their schema, their stigma, their views of it versus what is actually going on? So as you can see here, this is 2019. This is before the pandemic. And as Joe Biden said, in the past few years, crime has gone down. But in 2019, damn near 70% of all crime committed, of all adults arrested, 70% were white. The grand vast majority, way more than twice as much, damn near 3 times as much, were white people. 26.1% were Black or African American. 4% were other ethnicities. Of adult arrestees whom ethnicities reported, 18.8% were Hispanic or Latino. So even then, out of the 4%, only 20% were Hispanic or Latino, which means the rest were probably some fucking Asian people, despite saying Asian people don't commit crime. It's insanity. If you look at crime statistics in China, if you look at crime statistics in Japan, yes, Asian people do indeed fucking commit crimes. Have you never heard of the triad? Have you never heard of the Yakuza? The difference is that Asian people and white people are organized criminals. Black people aren't fucking criminals. So now I want to get back to this one. So this is the FBI crime statistics. I had one more. This was the one I wanted to look at. This is also from the FBI, cde.ucr.cjis.gov. And this is the Federal Bureau of Investigation Crime Data Explorer. So these are the FBI statistics on crime in America. This is from 2022. So this is 2 years ago. Based on the data received from 16,000 to about 19,000 participating law enforcement agencies. So this is about 16,000 to 19,000 law enforcement agencies giving their data. So this is not the data from some socialist. This is not the data that came from some left-wing hippie. This is the data from the whitest of white people about crime in America. The rate of violent crime offenses by population. 2012, 390. I don't know if this is hundreds of thousands or millions. Rate per 100,000. Okay, that's 300. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of violent crime. That's a lot of violent crime. That's too much violent crime, actually. 390,000 in 2012. That dropped down to 370,000, which is still an obscene rate. The lowest that it gets here is 361,000. So this is still like an obscene. So I know there seems to be like a grand wave here and shift, but the shift is only honestly about 30,000 to 40,000 people. The peak here is 398,000 people participating in violent criminal offenses. This is an insane epidemic that is going on in America. But who's the face of this? Black people. Black people are the face of crime in America, guys. Look at all these violent rates and offenses. It had to be the black people. It had to be us. National incident based reporting. This is not what I wanted to look at. Okay. All violent crime offenders versus victim demographics. This is a breakdown of the ages. So who's committing crimes? Oh, I didn't even know that they broke this down by race and ethnicity here as well. I had a whole different perspective for that. So this is age, sort by category, 20 to 29 years old, 232,000 people. That's insane. So as it gets older here, unknown is a pretty big, but I see like as it gets older, as people's brains begin to develop a lot more, I'm noticing that crime goes down drastically. So 30 to 39, crime goes down quite a lot. And as far as offenders go, as far as people who are having crime committed against them go, a lot of this seems to be very 10 to 19. Damn. What? I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because like, what the fuck? 10 to 19 years old for real? There's 134,000. So this a lot of this is just young, dumb motherfuckers. So 10 to 29, that's a lot of people right there who are going to prison and that got arrested. 30 to 39, that's a pretty large, that's about 200,000 people right there. That's a pretty large concentration as well. I know I'm adding on 6,000 there, but like I don't think it's hard to take 6,000 from there and 6,000 from there and think that it's like 2,000 people. Maybe someone was turning 40 at the end of the month. I'm just trying to make it easier to say the numbers for you. But you should be able to see the numbers right there. I made sure to screen share this video so that we're looking at the same stuff, and this is just by age. Unknown, okay. 40 to 20, that's crime goes down there. So once your brain begins to develop a little bit more, it is. I would love to see poverty statistics. I would love to see crime based off of the rate of, okay, so 0 to 9 years old, you still have 2,000 people, which is still a shocking number. Any violent crime is too much, in my opinion. Let's just be real. Any violent crime is too much crime. But the total is that that's a lot. 879,593 violent offenders in America. And there have been about 1 million victims of violent crime, 969,504. And these are very reflective of one another. Let's hear by sex. Crime is outstandingly committed by men. This is very not unique, but let's just leave it there. Okay. Crime is predominantly committed by men because we're going to revisit this topic because is it the black men? Is it you niggas? What are we doing to white people? All these men committing crimes, but the victims are equal. The victims are damn near down the middle. In fact, more men are victims of crime than women, but not by much. But there are 30,000 more men victim of crimes. So this is the big one. Here we go. Offenders, 2019, 389,295 and 378 for God damn it, those black people. But white people were the biggest victims of crime. Ethnicity, not Hispanics. So non Latino people actually commit the grand majority of all crime in America. But we are supposed to be concerned about the migrants coming over to our country. Now, all violent crime victim demographics. So who are committing these crimes? So we see the rate of crime. This is what we're here based off race, ethnicity. Um, the victims far disproportionately are white. White people are far disproportionately victims of crime. And honestly, these numbers are pretty neck and neck, to be real with you. For this year, the numbers are very neck and neck. They're very close. But when we get here, the relationship to the offender and the location type, the grand majority of crimes committed in America are committed inside of residential homes. So the grand majority of black violent crime is indeed black people and other black people. But there are far more victims of what crime that are white. That means the grand majority of white criminals are white people committing crimes against white people. So if black on black crime is such a big issue that needs to be addressed, that needs to be fixed, then you need to be deeply concerned about white on white crime just as well. But you're not. There is more white on white crime. There is more white crime. We have another. We're just going to go through this. We're going to go through this together, step by step. So the grand majority of these criminals, of these 800,000, damn near 90 of, I'm sorry, damn near 900,000 people, over half of these incidents, well, from this number, it's way more than half already. So over half of these incidents are residential crimes of domestic violence. The grand majority of crimes committed in America are domestic. So next you get into highway, alleyway, street, sidewalk. I guess this is like alluding to muggers or strangers or something of that nature. But I'm gonna hop over here real quick. 200,000 relationship is unknown. Okay, I thought that was different. I thought that was like one of these, like a spouse or something. Oh, so no, the grand majority of crime is still committed by complete total random acts of violence of total fucking strangers. Here you get into I thought there was gonna be some kind of comparison to whatever the fuck, you know, of it being like people that you already know or something like that. It says relationship unknown. I thought it said something different. But what is the difference between a relationship unknown and strangers? Is my question, because if you don't know the relationship to person, then would that not just make them strangers? That's why I thought it was something else. Relationship unknown. I don't know. Is coworkers up here at all? I'm very interested how often homosexual relationship, zero crimes committed within a homosexual relationship. That's not true. But maybe they just don't call the cops on each other. Child of boyfriend or girlfriend, in-law, step parent, grandparent. But these are the big numbers: relationship unknown, complete total fucking strangers, acquaintances, boyfriend, girlfriend, otherwise known. So I want to bring this back to both points with white people and for black people. You're making it seem like this black on black crime is committed by people who are like have good relationships with one another, that are actually dealing with one another. But the grand majority of all crime, About a third of all crime, a little bit more than a third of all crime in America, is committed by random fucking people that you've never met before in your life at all, or an acquaintance, someone that you barely freaking know. Over half, you know, so about 50% of the crime is actually committed by someone that you barely even freaking know, quite honestly. And then it's like a boyfriend or girlfriend, otherwise known. It drops down to spouse and things of that nature, parking lot, garages. But the grand majority of these incidents are happening inside of people's homes. So you have to have a vicinity to do that. You have to live within the location of other people to have access to their homes. Otherwise, you're just going into their neighborhoods to commit terrorism. Highway, alleyway, street, sidewalk. Okay. They're just statistics. There's no opinion about this. But there's a major issue with crime in America. Cyberspace, farm facility, military base. I stymie to think that only 38 crimes were committed on a military base. Militaries literally are there to commit crime foreignly against everyone. What I'm also kind of like confused by here is these numbers, the disparity between these two numbers, the total for the location. So we have like 1,800,000 less than 1,000,000 crimes locations for violent crime, I believe, and victim statistics. And you have this disparity here for the relationships, but again, it says relationship unknown. Maybe they just did not know, they didn't inquire. And it also is kind of off with these numbers too, because 33,000 more victims got added on to the locations, and we're still missing like 20,000 people for the relationships to the offender. But it's also like 100,000 more from the actual like offenders. But if you're an offender, if you're a criminal, then you probably commit crimes against multiple people, and that would make a little bit more sense. All violent crime offense characteristics: types of weapon involved in the crime, personal weapon, handgun, knife, cutting instrument, firearm, none. So, what is the difference between a personal weapon and a firearm and a handgun? Their like definitions are a little weird for me. Blunt object unknown, asphyxiation, rifle, other fire. They're literally listing out firearms right here. Personal weapon. What is a personal weapon? I don't understand what that is. Maybe someone else can explain that. Um, offense linked to other offenses. Offense linked to other offense. Destruction, damage, vandalism, 46,000. Weapon law violation. So criminal, you're not supposed to have a weapon. Simple assault, kidnapping, abduction. I'm glad that there's a lot less kidnappings than I thought that there were, but that's still like a lot. Drug, narcotics. This is like a lot of fucking crime, man. This is a lot of crime. This is an insane amount of crime. And that's the bottom of this list. So this is the Crime Data Explorer Forum, the FBI, of total crime trends from 2012 to 2022. And this is the trend of violent crime. So this is my second statistic here. Okay. And this is about arrest. So these are people who are convicted of crimes. Keep that in mind again. These are convictions. These are the people that actually ended up going to jail for their crimes. And slightly less black people went, but again, it is disproportionate. It is a disproportionate the amount of black people that are being arrested for violent crimes. But the grand majority of these crime incidents are happening in each other's home. The majority of this crime is happening in the household. So racism still does not help. Mass unemployment still does not help. Raising the rates of rent still does not help. There's still no factor in American policy, American government, American law, American politicians adjusting the fact that our home life, our family life, is what leads to the grand majority, over half of these crimes that are being committed. So it's not just a matter of black on black crime for white communities as well. It's also y'all, you know. 2019 crime in the United States. This is also from the UCR and the FBI. This is UCRFBI.gov. This comes directly from the FBI website. And you're about to see a massive disparity, my baby. Offense charged, okay? Total, about almost 7,000. 6.8 million white, 4.7 million arrests, blacks, 1.8 million. So, how do we get from 1.8 million black people being arrested to 378,000 people actually being convicted of the crimes? So, this means that a grand majority of the black people that were arrested weren't even guilty, might have been innocent. But this statistic is completely asinine and insane to me, almost abnormally so. How do you go from 4.7 billion white people being arrested, 70% of the crimes, 69.4% of all criminal arrests are white people? How do you go from 4.7 million to 38,000, 390,000? Like, how the hell does that work out? I need some statistics for that, baby. I need a comparison for that, baby boy. I need that. 4,478 over 40,000. Go back here real quick. And I'll go through the list too, don't worry. Divided by 1815144. That's 20%. 20% of the black people arrested for crimes are convicted of crimes and end up going to prison. So there's a high probability, if not a drastic likelihood, that if you are a black person that had a crime committed against you, this person's going to prison. 20% chance the person's going to prison because the cops are just arresting people. They're just arresting people. Let's bring this back home though. 389, 209. Again, this is only violent crime. So those are the violent crime statistics as well. So this is not, that 20% does not also include nonviolent criminal offenses. It does not include just public disturbances or anything like that. I messed up. I messed this up. It's a five. It's a five. Five divided by 4,729. That's a little annoying. 2, 9, 4,729,290. Wow. 8% of white people convicted, arrested for a crime. Only 8% of white people actually end up going to jail or prison. So I think, again, the big issue here is that the grand majority of these crimes are happening domestically, some by complete total fucking strangers. But 20% of black people are being arrested and convicted of violent criminal offenses. Only 8% of white people are being arrested. Murder, non-negligent manslaughter, that's a black people thing by about 400 people, 400 more arrests for manslaughter. Rape is disproportionately a white crime. That is more than double. So again, a lot of these murders, a lot of these manslaughter cases, these are happening domestically. These are happening between people, unfortunately. Actually, do they know each other? We can go back and look here, so I don't even have to guess it. Relationship unknown, strangers, acquaintances, boyfriends, otherwise known in some capacity. And then it gets into spouses and stuff. Um, this is still an issue. This is still a huge problem. But 50% of these people for we're here right now. I'm gonna try to highlight it the best I can. Oh, there's another one here. Hispanic and non-Hispanic. Man, Hispanic people should be terrified to live in America. I'd be terrified of white people and black people if I was Hispanic because they are disproportionately committing more crimes than the rest of y'all. Robbery, almost even 29,000, 44% to 52%. But you have to also acknowledge, like, it is abnormal that only 13% of the population is affecting these issues. But a grand majority of Black people, we can also look up income statistics. I did this once before. Income statistics based on race in USA. That's education data. That might also be interesting to look at maybe today or at another time. Income by race, average, mean, by percent. I don't know what DQY DJ is, so take their statistics with a grain of salt. Average income for a white household is 76,000. Average income for a black household is 55,000. Top 1% income, 460,000 for white people, 278,000 for black people. So even the richest black person in America still has damn near half the money that white people do. Depending on your neighborhood, $200,000 may not be enough to live off of. So the average income is 55,000. So that's for the people that are employed, have jobs, have something to do. Average medium, white, non-Hispanic are actually the second highest income next to Asians. But Asians commit far less crimes than black people or white people. They do still commit crimes though. So the black income level is less than 300,000 on average. What's this? The median income is well over 100,000, and the average income is well under 100,000, about half of that, as it is for a good number of these communities as well. Let's go back to the crime statistics. Aggravated assault, predominantly white people, 61%, 62%, 61.8, 62% to 33% white versus black. Burglary, 60, damn near 70% white people, 30% black people. Larceny, 66% white people. Motor vehicle theft, 67% white people. Arson, 70% white people. The numbers are right here. It's not a lot of arson going on. The grand majority of arson going on is white people. Violent crime, 59% white people, damn near 60%. Property crime, 66% white people, 67%. Other assaults, 64, 65% white people. Forgery and counterfeiting, 67.1% white people. Fraud, damn near twice the amount, over twice the amount, 65, 66% white people. Embezzlement, 60% white people. Stolen property, buying, receiving, possessions. There is not really a single statistic up here other than the first statistic of manslaughter and murder and non-negligent manslaughter, murder and non-negligent manslaughter, you know, and black people are only leading by 6%, and again, if a black person murders you, he's more than likely going to prison if he's not killed by the police. He's more than likely going to prison. These white people are not going to jail for any of this stuff. Not even a little bit, not even close. 8% of all these crimes, only 8% were convicted and went to jail. This means the grand majority did some kind of plea bargain, made some kind of deal, total arrest under the age of 18. So maybe this is an issue in which, you know, misguided black kids are committing all the crimes, even though we have the statistics here for as well. Age group, if I could find it real quick, I think I still have it on race for age group. So this is people under the age of 18 that we're currently looking at. We do have our offender statistics here. We also have our victim statistics here for the ages of 10 to 19, but also the ages of 0 to 9. So ages of 0 to 9, there are far more victims that are children, disproportionately victims that are children, than any form of offenders that are children. These numbers are pretty even, but you can also imagine that it's other kids each other's age getting into beef with other kids each other's age, and it ends up going left. So same thing, murder, non-negligent manslaughter, we're still about neck and neck, but black people are still leaving in murder. A black person killing somebody or killing another like black person, this is a major issue. But this is also an issue of self-hatred. This is an issue of, a lot of black people do not like other black people. They do not value black life like they value white life. So the audacity, not just audacity, but the audacity, we're talking about murder. Murder at some level is a form of premeditation. Non negligent manslaughter, I believe, if I'm going off of the title, is basically you could have prevented this death and you just did not. But you still have over half of the arrests are disproportionately white people. So why do we not hear that the majority of prisoners are white? The majority of people getting arrested are white people, and why are they not being convicted of these crimes? Why are they not going to jail or going to prison, but black people are? Rape disproportionately. It's the same thing. Robbery, you're definitely more likely, almost half the time, more likely to be robbed by a black person who's under the age of 18. It's 4,000 to about 7.5 thousand for robbery. Aggravated assault is through the roof, white versus black. Burglary, larceny, and theft. Motor vehicle theft. I live near Newark, New Jersey, so young black dudes stealing cars. That is definitely a thing. Arson still up there. Violent crime through the roof, white. Property crime through the roof, white. So you're trying to prove a sense of disproportionality, and disproportionately white people commit more crimes. Prostitution and commercialized vice, 50% black, 47.4% white. I'm just looking for the statistics that black people are doing more than white people at this point. There's not a lot though. Stolen property, buying, receiving possessions, 62.3%, 34.6%. The income level, though, you know, why are these white people committing these crimes? People commit crimes when they don't make a lot of money, especially the type of crimes that you're talking about here, stealing cars and selling them. Young poor kid growing up. Violent crime is completely astronomical. It's like there's no justification for murder. There's no justification for a lot of these violent, senseless crimes. But there's also no justification for this rape statistic being 71% white people under the age of 18. You know, drug abuse violations. I definitely thought that would have been a black crime. But it's not. Prostitution and commercialized vice is a black crime. This is statistically in the black community, and 47.4%. So 50% of these people being arrested for prostitution are young black kids. Gambling disproportionately. All these are disproportionately white. If you're looking at these numbers and you're looking at these statistics, they are disproportionately white. Arrests 18 and over. Okay, so maybe this is going to swing back in and this is going to be a black issue. And then we could finally lay to bed that black people are all criminals. This murder case is still the same 51% to 57%. Rape is still disproportionately white people. Robbery, 50% black, 47 though percent white. So they're right there with you. Aggravated assault, 62% white. Again, we're just all if I don't name it, assume that white people, and I don't not just assume it, but you can look on the screen, you can enlarge your screen with me. The grand majority is white people committing crimes. And I'm not neglecting that black people also commit crimes. I'm trying to figure out why then, if these white numbers are so big, according to FBI statistics for arrests, this is the police doing their job. The police are indeed arresting more white people than they are arresting black people. They're arresting white people in way bigger numbers than they're arresting black people. The legal court system is not sending white criminals to prison. It is sending black people to prison disproportionately. So what you do not have is a disproportionate amount of black people committing crimes to white people. You have a disproportionate amount of white people being arrested and not going to prison for crimes that they've obviously committed. And you have a grand majority of black people going to crimes that they may or may not have committed. Um, yeah, I'll look at we can look at the education statistics too if we can. Educational attainment, 4-year college, class of 2020, graduated in 2014. Yes, that's high school graduation. This is all races in America. No, so college dropouts for all races, 18%. Oh man, 18% did not graduate high school. So at least 82% of these people have, you know, enrolled in 20% are enrolled inside of a 4-year degree. So this is from the 82%, 20% went to college, 36% went to a 4-year college. So about 56% of the 82% that then went on to graduate, only 56% of high school graduates went to college in 2020. 26% did not. That's horrific. And again, 18% did not even graduate from high school. So going to college was not an answer. It was not an option. And it shows it here. So it shows it here. So the 82%, that's what we're here. This is the breakdown from the 82%. So from for this 56% here, only 6.2% graduated. Only 23% graduated. Wow. 13% did not graduate. 14% did not graduate. I'm going to need to do some math real quick again to understand this issue. 18% dropped out. I know this does not work because this is not like a total, but I just need like some sense of basis for the kids that have graduated versus the kids that did not, just some kind of like rationality for this. I mean, I can also just 6.4 plus 23 plus 6.4. So 29.4%. Can I just round? I can't just round up to 30. 29% graduated. So only 29% of the American population of this year graduated. 71% did not receive an actual education. So 71% of the population does not have a means to actually make a good living. 71% of the American population does not have a college education. They don't even have an associate's degree. 71% of Americans either dropped out or did drop out or simply failed out, you know. So that is a big, interesting number. The largest high school graduation rates of any ethnicity, 89%, followed by white. Blacks had the lowest graduation rates with less than three quarters of students starting high school in 2010 and graduating by 2014. All right, so we can do this by race now. White kids. So let's look this up too. Because if you look at the Asian numbers, only 86% of these crimes, damn near 1% of these crimes are committed by Asian people in America. Asian people from a different place, but Asian people here in America. Let's by race it real quick. Asians, only 20% of Asians are victims of crimes. Only about 8,000 Asian people were arrested for crimes. But if you look at their education, you know, if you're a highly educated person, only 11% of Asian Pacific Island students did not drop out of high school. 89% graduated, which means the vast majority of Asians at least have the ability to get a degree. 54% went to college, 25% went to associate school. So even then, out of that 89%, 29, 79% went on to gain a higher education. When 79% of your population is educated, you have 79% of your population that can get good jobs. They don't need to commit crimes. They don't need to figure out how they're going to pay their bills or make a living. You have 79% of your population that can start a business that can hire other people that look just like you. When the grand majority of the people in your community are going to college, gaining an education, and expanding themselves and meeting other people, you have a greater, more common sense of humanity than you would otherwise. 41% graduated, 9.3% graduated. So then about 50% actually got the education. But the 50% that did not graduate, 13%, okay, that's actually less than 50%. 29% did not graduate. So about 79% went to college. Only only 29 didn't graduate. So a third went to higher education, did not receive the higher education. Those are usually the people that become entrepreneurs and start businesses and things of that nature. These people, the 41, the 50% or so that graduated, are usually the people that become the leaders of the fucking free world. Let's look at white people real quick. 13% of white people this year, this is the graduating class of 2020, graduating college 2020, 13% dropped out. 87% went to high school. So 87% of these white people have an education. Have an education. And this is in line with the statistics that we have, because the statistics that we have are from 2019 to 2022. So this is right in line with the statistics that we have. This is not some out of the water bullshit. Okay. 28% now. So we're going from 13 to 28. So 30, 40, some damn, that's a big fucking drop off. That's a huge drop off rate, actually. That's insane, quite honestly. The drop off rate from here to here is pretty insane. Um, wow. 28% did not go to any form of higher education whatsoever. And I'm not going to assume anything about their income statistics because I have the income statistics here. You know, the average white household is making $76,000. Maybe that's not enough to save up to send your kid to college. So even those making the bare minimum needed to survive in America, which was said to be $70,000 to $75,000, the great majority still can't afford to send their kid. I'm just assuming it's an affordability thing. Or honestly, because it's white people, it's a value of education thing, to be honest with you. It's a value of education. Asian people value education. You could say whatever they want about how they raise their kids and how they abuse their children. They still value education. 17% went to a 2-year degree, 42%. So 59% actually went to college. 28% graduated from the 4-year degree, only at 5.8% graduated from a 2-year college. This is like, you are not really dealing with the most educated group when you're dealing with white people. 25%, that's 50, that's damn near. So over the grand majority of white people are not educated, apparently. Um, this is 25% dropout, which 28%. So it's like 52 plus 13. So that's 65% of white people in 2020 don't have an education. 65% of white people are not educated. So you have like these drastic, insane, freaking criminal statistics of white people committing all of these crimes. And then they don't have the actual education to decipher the information about the crimes being committed. That makes a lot of sense. If 65% of your population does not have an education, it makes a lot of sense as to why you're committing so many crimes. Because education is the key to earning more money. If you do, it's also education is just, it teaches you things like philosophy and ethics and morality and theology. It teaches you a commonality with other people as well when you're going to university and you're around all these different groups of people and all these different races. And now the moment of truth. Let's get to black people. 27% of black people drop out of high school. Only 73% of black people graduate. Of those that graduated, 51% go to college. So half of the black people that graduated went to college, 22% did not. So right here, just we're talking about just a high school level education. 27% of these black folks don't even have a high school diploma. That is like, that's genocidal. 27% don't even have a high school. That is genocidal. That is criminal. That is absolutely fucking insane. And you're telling me this is 2020, this is 4 years ago. You're telling me if there's no programs for tutoring for black kids, for assisting black kids with emotional intelligence in schools, you have 27% of black kids. So this is where racism comes into place, because you have the statistics to know that 27% of these kids do not have an education, a basic level K through 12 education. But then when you're looking at the crime statistics, you're not going to bring in the fact that black people are less educated than white people and still commit less than half the crimes than white people do. Less than half. But 27% don't even have a high school diploma. 22% did not go to college. So 49, damn near 50% of black people do not have an actual education. So when you're dealing with 59% of a population, and this isn't passing college, this is never having been to college at all. 49% of black people have never been to college. How do you find a good job? How do you build a business, a successful business? How do you get along with other groups of people if you've never seen more than just your neighborhood and you don't have an education? That is scary. That is a genocidal statistic that damn 50% of black people are not educated. That is a criminal genocidal statistic. And you want to talk about black on black crime, you need to talk about black education. Because before you can address the black income levels, this makes a lot of fucking sense right now that you're only making $55,000 a year. That's like about how much a manager might make at a fast food restaurant or maybe at a fucking store or something. You make 55 or 70, 259,000, 278,000. That's being like a basketball player or a professional or some shit. So those are the ones that were able to actually go to college to become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. But then you don't have a clientele base. 50% of people that look like you. Meanwhile, there's only 13% of the population. 50% of 13% of the population do not have an education. That explains the crime statistics to me, unfortunately. And that's a horrific thing, but it explains it. And then you get down to who was able to graduate. Damn near 32% were not able to graduate. So that's 30. And I know these are not perfect statistics. These are not perfect. So about 80% of Black people are not educated, at least have no proof of education either. 80% are not educated. And only 14% have a 4-year degree. We're not talking about masters or a doctorate. Only 14% of 13% of a population are even in a position to get out of poverty, to even understand what poverty is beyond the nuance, beyond the difficulties of understanding. Only about 14%, 20% of the Black American population, 19%. I can't even round it to 20 because this is 14 and this is 5. So 19.1% have at least. That's scary, bro. That is scary, brother. So this like the whole attack upon black entrepreneurship, black capitalism, talking about black people and money is a far-going conclusion. Talking about black crime as a far-going conclusion. You can't address the black income level and you can't address black crime until you are educating these black babies. You have 27% of black students not graduating from high school. That's insane. So then when you look at these statistics about the people committing crimes under the age of 19, what are you really going to do? I'm sorry, it's up here actually. And the offenders of crimes under the age of 19, it's like, what are you going to do when 0 to 9%, 10 to 19%? I mean, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. That's not a percentage. That is not a percentage. We can get to percentages. 15% of the crimes are committed by children ages 10 to 19. 0% are committed by 0 to 9 years olds. 4% of the crimes are victims. 16 to 20% of the victims of crimes, to a fifth of the victims of crimes are children. A fifth. That's scary, bro. That's terrifying. And you only want to talk about black people committing crimes like that is like that is so beyond the level of psychopathy. I sat here and I broke down the whole goddamn thing, and I'm sorry I didn't really focus on Asian people or Latino people because honestly they have their shit together. We can look at the Latino education rates just for shits and giggles, just to like be fair and be equal and non-partial in this issue. But I'm focusing on black and white because black and white people are the most fucked up people here, but black people are victimized for centuries. White people are not. There is no excuse for the white crime. I can see very clearly where black crime comes from. Black people are not making enough money, and black people have not advanced enough within their education. It's impossible to move on in this country if you don't have a college degree. The bachelor's degree is the new high school diploma. You at least need a bachelor's degree to get by in America. A lot of these jobs that pay like shit won't even pay you like shit unless you have a bachelor's degree. They don't even want to look at you unless you have a bachelor's degree. So you'd need a master's or a doctorate. You can't get a master's or a doctorate if less than 20% of you even have a 4 year, fucking 2 year degree. The critical crisis within the Black community then is not income. That's a symptom. It's not crime, unfortunately. It's a symptom. Crime is an issue in the Black community. But the biggest issue in the Black community that I'm looking at right now is education. Black people are not being educated. Black people are not being taught. Either it's a refusal to learn, but for most of the programming, most of the research, if you've done it, there's something called the fourth year failure syndrome. So by the fourth grade or so, by the ages of 9 or 10, a lot of Black students check out because they're no longer educating Black students in a way that Black kids can learn. Black kids learn from things like Sesame Street. When they're singing, there's dancing, there's participation, and there's involvement. They do not learn from being lectured and talked at for hours on end by a woman who has never been in their community. I went to school. I went to a quote unquote good school. I went to a school that people were going into debt to send their kids to. People couldn't afford to fucking go to live in their fucking neighborhood. And you still had teachers that coming to our school was the first time people way older than me. We're talking about when I was a freshman in high school, a sophomore in high school, 14, 15 years old. My teachers were 60, 50, you know, some were 70 or 80, some were old. They had never met a Black person until they came to this school. And then your perception of Black people is not casted in your Black colleagues who are fellow teachers. There weren't a lot of Black teachers in our school. It's being portrayed by an adolescent in the middle of puberty, and that is now going to be your idea of all Black people, despite all the racist ideas you have of Black people already. The biggest issue in the Black community is not finances, it is not crime. The biggest issue in the Black community is education. Let's look at Latinos real quick. Hispanics, 76%, 24% not graduating is still a pretty scary statistics. That's 13. I think this was 27. 24% is right next to Black Americans. This one is 11. 50% of these students go on to go to college. 26% do not. So you're like 50 and 50 for Latinos. 50% of Latinos go to college, 50% do not. 8.8. That's still over 20%, though. It's not by much. It is not by much. You know, and I don't want to make any excuses or caveats for them. 28%. So that's still bad. 78% of Latinos not having an actual education is also really scary. It's also very, very scary, especially if you don't necessarily speak the language. So we have an Asian master race going on here, that Asian people are actually the supremacists, where Asian Americans are the top performers on earth, but they still face racist white supremacy. They're still victims of racist white supremacy, but not nearly as bad as. I'm looking at the white statistics real quick so I can make my point educatedly. 25% drop out of college, 28. Honestly, I still don't understand why the white crime statistics are so damn high, because it's not translating to any of that. Because Latinos have about the same amount of dropouts as like Black people do. But non-Latino people disproportionately commit more crimes. Non-Latin people commit damn near 80% of the crimes. So I feel like Black people need to spend more time in emulating the Hispanic and Latino community, emulating the Asian American community. And we need to spend far less time trying to do white, because white people commit more crimes and are arrested for crimes 70% of the time, far more than any other group in this country, more than twice than any other group in this country. Um, they are educated, to a degree. They are educated, but still, over 50% are not. Just from here to here, that's 30, but 41%, 41, that's 55, 66%. So two-thirds of white people are not educated. Only a third of white people have an education. But for black people and Latino people, we're talking about damn near 80% of the population does not have an education. That's scary. But I feel like the massive difference between Latinos and black people, Latinos have values and morals and convictions. They have la raza, they have a community that I don't necessarily see them just committing crimes against other Latino people, especially for no fucking reason whatsoever. I just don't. Have you ever seen Latinos dance and party? Yeah, it's a great time. Have you seen black people party? Yeah, it's a scary environment. Once you start getting drunk, once you start getting high, once you start introducing all these fucking elements, you're not living on Earth anymore. You're living in the fucking high zone. You're living in a whole different fucking atmosphere and ecosystem at that point in time. This video was originally to kind of expose white people, but I really don't have the deep level of interest that people think I do in talking about white people. I really don't. But I just keep seeing shit to talk about when it comes to white people. Black kids going to college, sending more black kids through high school, at least graduating high school, at least ensuring that your kids have a GED, having the bare minimum education, you know. And then if you want to go to trade school, go to the military, do whatever you do, You get be yourself, do your thing. But over 80% of black people not having even a bachelor's degree, not even having an associate's degree, that's what creates black crime. That's what creates black poverty. You don't even have the education to lift yourself out of poverty. You don't even have the education to understand what the fuck poverty is to begin with. Not to mention, you're building off of the backs of 250 years of psychological, emotional, mental, narcissistic abuse from white people. I can understand what is going on in the black community. This does not explain why white people are committing more than twice the crimes than anybody else. Black people and Asian people are not a big portion of the population. Asians are still dominating, you know? Black people and Latino people have the same levels of dropout rates, but Latinos are committing only about 19% of the crimes. You know, the majority of the crimes are being committed by white people, and white people are not the majority of the population anymore. They're not. They're less than 50% now. So there is no real justification or understanding for why white people are committing so many different crimes. There just is not. You can keep targeting black on black crime to justify why white people kill black people, but there seems to be a higher moral issue here because 66% of white people don't even have a college education. So they do not know philosophy, they do not know ethics, they do not know history, they don't know shit. So if it's an issue where 80% of black people don't have an education, why is it that 60%, 66% of white kids not graduating leads to such a drastic shift in the crime rates? You could say, oh, there's more white people than black people. Okay, but if white people are supposed to be pure and white people are supposed to be amazing and white people are supposed to be the superior group, then why do they commit more crimes than Asians or Latinos? Shouldn't white people have less crimes committed than Asians or Latinos in America? If the migrant crisis is such a big issue, and we have to worry about like minorities coming over to America and killing us and murdering us, I saw a statistic recently, and the grand majority of white people are killed by white people. You know, let's see if we can find that real quick. So I'm not talking on my ass. white on white crime statistics. Just bounce around, see if I can find it. This is from Vox. So Vox is a leftist news cycle. This is 2015. So 2015 predates any of my statistics. 2015 predates any of the data that we just reviewed. Blacks represent 13% of the population, but commit 50% of the murders. 90% of Black victims are murdered by other Blacks, right? 10 times Joe's Klein calling for provocative thinking on race in America. The facts suggest that history is not enough to explain the social disaster. That is actually not what we just looked at, is it? Again, that's in 2015, so it's different. Um, he's not mentioning that white people committed 45% of the crimes, though. That's only 6% left. So white people committed more crimes in that disparity, or black people did, than the Americans, the Asians, and Native Americans. I think that does entirely explain it because 80% of black people don't have a college degree. So if you're impacting the historical ramifications of how white people treated black people mixed with 80% of modern black people not even having an education about what happened to them, yes, that would explain why they're murdering and killing each other, especially when the music is telling them to murder and kill each other. Yet the truth, according to the FBI's most recent homicide statistics, is that the United States is in the wake of an epidemic of white on white crime. Back in 2011, the most recent year for which data is available, a staggering 83% of white murder victims were likely killed by fellow Caucasians. The Caucasus Mountains are not in Europe. The Caucasus Mountains are in Asia. You're not Caucasian. You're not white. You're European. This is not to say that white people are inherently prone to violence. Most whites obviously manage to get through life without murdering anyone. And there are many countries full of white people. They give some examples. Norway, Iceland, those are white countries. New Zealand is not a white country. You imperialized that. United Kingdom, where you also imperialized and enslaved other white people. So white people are actually inherently violent. You are actually inherently violent. To get to New Zealand and to get to the United Kingdom, there was a lot of violence that you had to commit to do that. And nobody else on the planet has done that. Nobody. Where white people murder each other at much lower rate than you see here is in the United States. On the other hand, although people often see criminal behavior as a symptom of poverty, the quantity of murder committed by white people, specifically in the United States, casts them down on this. Per capita GDP is considerably higher here than France, and the white population in America is considerably richer than the national average, and yet we have more white murderers. 30% of those whites are killed by women. So to understand the level of cultural pathology at work here, it's important to understand that 36% of those killed by whites are women. 36% are women, a far higher share than you see with black murderers. So you have mostly black men getting into fights and discrepancies with other black men that lead to them killing each other over more than likely hyper emotional interactions that could have been completely fucking avoided. But you have a history of black people killing black people and, you know, no one batting an eyelash. A clear social disaster of white violence has complicated roots, but the beginning of an answer is to admit that we have a problem. It's striking that President Obama, who's frequently found time to comment on the height of black men's waistlines, seems oblivious to this torrent of white killing. To be fair, the White House, however, it would be uniquely difficult for Obama to address this delicate issue. The real tragedy is that none of Obama's 43 white predecessors have addressed it either. Indeed, looking back on America's political iconography, hopefully I said that right. I've never seen that word before. There are disturbing trends towards the glorification, towards the glorification of white violence. Yeah, they worship white criminals. White people worship white criminals in a way that black people are artificially forced to. Black people are forced to acknowledge rappers and musicians and all this type of shit, even though they're like fucking criminals. I call it as a branch of art history studies the identification, description, and interpretation of the content of image, the subjects depicted, the particular compositions and details used to do so. So not only are white people killing white people, the majority of the victims of white crimes are also white people. So the notion and idea that a white person has to worry about a black person killing them or has to worry about a black person doing anything to them is astronomically low because most black people live around other black people. Sparsely, a sparse amount of black people live in all white neighborhoods. And those are not fucking criminals. The grand majority of black people live around other black people, and the crimes are being committed due to vicinity. And again, as we looked up, the location for the majority of crimes of any crime committed is residential, which also means that the grand majority of white people being killed by white people are being killed by those who are going to come back to this white men. The grand majority are killed by white men, you know? So that's reality for you. So yes, black crime in America is scary. It's drastic. It's horrifying. It is scary. But white crime in America is far more prevalent, literally more than two times, 2 to 3 times more likely. And some of these crimes are way more than 2 to 3% white people being committed than black people being committing crimes. Way more than Asians or Latinos committing crimes. White people are the most dangerous people on the planet. White people are the ones that you need to be looking out for. And the more that you keep talking about black on black crime, yeah, that's great, but talk about black education as well. If you want to fix that statistics, talk about having more black people graduate from high school, having more programs to assist black students in learning, having more programs to assist black students in getting into college. And I'm pretty sure that you'll see a dramatic difference in black crime statistics. However, what you also have in America is you have institutionalized legal slavery. We getting down to it, baby. We getting down to it, baby. You have institutionalized legal slavery under the 13th Amendment. So if you are arresting 20% of, if you are convicting 20% of black people that commit crimes, and you're only convicting 8% of white people that commit crimes, although white people are committing far more crimes than black people, again, 69% to 27% are white people committing crimes compared to black people. White people are committing all of the crime. The majority of crime in America is committed by white people to other white people, committed by white people to non-white people. Black people are mostly killing other black people. Yes, correct. But black people are also being killed by white people. White people are being killed by white people. 83% of white people that have died violently has died by the hands of another white person. 83%. That's a staggering amount. And you want to talk about black people. So I had to do this. I had to make this video, and I don't really know what else I could discuss in this video, what else I could really share with you to prove my point and to really get down with this, because I know there's still going to be people in the comments. But the man said, he deleted his comments. You can't see it. The man said, white people are like a gang. White people are highly individualistic. You're individualistic to the point that 66% of white people are not educated. And 83% of white people are dying at the hand, are being killed by the hands of other white people. So that's more than just the uneducated population. That means that also the educated population of whites is participating in the murder and killing of other white individuals. I've been me, you've been you, and I've been great. I'll talk to you soon, baby.